So I just finished putting together the daisy mushroom house from our new little fairy village that comes complete with a cute little wagon centerpiece. A little bit different than usual, but beautiful nonetheless. And we're gonna do a little matching house to go along with it. This is Violet's mushroom fairy house. And let's start off with the base, just like we did with Daisy's. So let's just jump right in. Just kind of get our feet wet here with something simple, and then we'll move on to the stem and finish off with the cap just like we did before. So here is the base. I've gone ahead and I've pre-folded everything. I did mention in the last video that I use either, well, I use my scraper for this, but you can use, this is a little vinyl tool. Bone folder works as well. Just when you pre-fold everything, it helps to kind of loosen up the fibers and it makes things a little bit easier to work with. So that helps when you're folding everything at this little score marks here. But let's just, like I said, let's just jump right in here. We're going to start by putting glue on the little triangular tabs here and matching them up with the neighboring wall, as I'll call them. I'm going to call these walls. So we're just putting it right behind the wall of the neighboring piece, holding it for just a few seconds there just to make sure that it sticks, and moving right along to the next one. And remember, don't use too much glue. If you do, it's gonna be squirting out all over the place, and you're gonna be spending 2 to 3 times as much time waiting for everything to dry. You know, just be very gentle with your piece. Try not to jostle it around. Let that glue do what it does best, and you'll be rocking and rolling through the assembly in no time. Okay, so you just want to make sure that you line those up as accurately as you can, and I'm just moving right along to the next piece, and you see how quickly everything is setting for me. It might not be completely set, but when I put these two pieces together, really pushing that glue into the little fibers of the paper, and it's helping it set a lot faster. So I'm down to my last 2 here, and we'll just get our glue on the tab here. I'm just going to dab it a little bit, thin it out, tacky it up, and I'm going to bring this in, and when I do that, I'm going to make sure that this little triangular tab here is not sticking out so that I don't have to pull it back out to pop it back in. Okay, and let's get this tab connected to the neighboring wall, just like we did a few times now. And that just leaves this last little triangular tab right inside here. It's a little hard to see because the paper's kind of blocking the light, but you'll be able to see it. And get that connected. And just press and hold that for a minute. And you can see I got more glue than usual on that little piece there and a little bit squirted out, so, but that's okay. Just wipe it off and move on, not a big deal. Okay, next up is this piece. We're going to close this shape up. Now let's pick one side, one tab, and let's get our glue on that tab. Just kind of work a little bit towards the center, and then a nice thin little line right out to the edge so we can bring it right out to the very, very edge. Now grab this piece here and get that nice and centered and aligned right up to the very edge, and just give that a press right up at the very seam where they're going to connect, and you can then flip it down on your table and press down from the inside to speed up that process there. Okay, there we go. All right, now we can go ahead. We got to close this up in one fell swoop here, so get your glue on these tabs, and then we're going to do a little line right out to the edge so it looks nice and clean. And just a nice thin line right out to the edge. Let's spread that thin with my fingers here in just a second. It does kind of help to keep the glue nozzle on your paper, kind of as a guide. Okay, and just spread that out to the very edge there. You can paint it that way or this way, doesn't matter. There we go. And Got a lot of surface area here to cover, so act quick. Flare these up just a tad. And as you're putting this down, focus on aligning this side opposite the side that's already connected and hinged. And get that nice and centered. If you have to kind of push the walls in a little bit, you'll have to do that, that's fine. And then just run your thumb or whatever finger along the seam where they're connecting. Push that down, give it a little bit of force. And there we go. And then just kind of keep working your finger around the perimeter. Add that downward force to ensure that it's making a constant connection there while that glue sets. And that looks perfect. Okay, so now if your bottom that we just put on doesn't look perfect, don't worry about it. You can flip it over just like that. Okay, and we're going to put a little lip on this thing so that when we put our little fairy house on it, it won't just fall off the base. So you're going to want to find these two pieces here. And I've already kind of pre-folded them. And I'm going to want the texture side facing out. So my texture side is going to sit like that. Texture side here, texture side here. We'll do the same thing there. We're going to lay this flat in a second, but I just want to kind of get a good mental idea of where I'm gluing what. And we're going to begin by putting glue on this little triangular tab here. Okay, so just work that glue right out to the very edge there where it meets the main part of this little strip. And you can just use your table here and line that up as accurately as you can. Press, and then once it's got somewhat of a hole, you can fold it over on top of itself and just kind of adjust it until you've got it so it's perfectly lined up here and that these tabs are sitting perfectly on top of each other. That means that we've got it lined up as accurately as we possibly can. Okay, so that just leaves this little triangular tab here. Get your glue on there and just work that out, maybe tack it up a bit. And you can literally just put this down flat and take this piece and just lay it right on top of it. And that should sit nice and flat. And again, we can fold it over onto, or fold it right at that seam where we just connected everything, and everything should look and sit right on top of itself. Now we got one continuous piece here. It's going to go like that. And what we need to do now is take this piece and just pop this right through. It's going to be a little tight, but that's okay. That's how we want it. Just feed that through. There we go. And there's our little lip. So all we need to do is flip this over, and we're going to glue these tabs down. So pick a tab, any tab, doesn't matter. Don't go too crazy with the glue here, just a little bit will do. And then just fold it over onto the underside of this little perimeter piece and press that down. Okay, and that should hold. And then go over to the opposite side and a little bit of glue there. Fold it over onto the underside of the perimeter piece and press that down. And then just pick any other tab here. A little bit of glue, fold it over, press down, and then go opposite side. A little bit of glue, fold it over, and press that down. And that just leaves two more tabs for us. There's one, and you know what, let's just do the other one. Fold it over. You can just use your table to get the rest of those in place. And there you go. You got all the tabs now glued down. And all we have to do now is glue this to the top of this piece. And we want to try to make this as seamless as possible. So work a little bit of glue around the inside. Don't overdo it. And then let's do a nice fine line right along the edge that we can paint out to the very, very cliff. There we go. And there we go. Okay. And that that should do it. Now, just want to align this with the existing shape here. Doesn't matter where you put it. It's a symmetrical piece. So just make sure that the very edges here are making good contact with the existing base there, and just run your finger along the edges here. Make sure that you don't have anything lifting up. And we can check our work here in a minute, and if something doesn't look right, we can fix it. No big deal. Okay. I'll just scan the perimeter here. Give it a sec. Make sure that we're being patient. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so there's that. And now all that's left to do with this guy is add this little decorative base. Okay, now the scallops are going to be pointing down, and you want the flat side flush with the top of this part of the base. And it's always best to start in the center with this piece here. Get a little bit of glue on those little scallops. Okay, and these little corners here, just match those up with the corners here. And just pop that right down. Use your fingers to kind of feel and make sure that that is nice and flush with the surface of our base there. Okay, and just hold that down for just a moment. Make sure that it really sticks. We can flare this out and move on to the next piece. Now with this one here, make sure you get some glue out to the very tip of that so that doesn't come pulling off that piece there. Just grab it, lay it down, make sure it's nice and flush with the surface there, and just press it for a few seconds. There we go. And then we can go over to this side here. Get your glue on there, right out to the edge, and bam. Just get that lined up nicely. And there you go. Okay, so that's half. You gotta do the same thing with the other half now. So we'll start there. Here is our other half. Just make sure, oh, obviously you need to fold these. There are some score lines there. I've pre-folded pretty much everything here to save time and keep the video flowing. I would recommend doing the same before you get started. Just once you get everything off your machine, off the mat, just spend some time getting everything folded. Just kind of create a little assembly line for yourself just to keep it flowing. Okay, so just like I did the first side, just starting with the middle, make sure that that's holding nicely, and then flare one of the ends out. Get some glue, do some little circles like the shape of the little scallops there, and just make sure that you get a little bit of glue right out to the very edge there. And focus on making sure that it's nice and flush with the surface of our base. That should meet perfectly right there in that corner. And it does. And last one here. And again, make sure you get that glue out to the very edge. Fold it over, and voila. That looks good. Perfect. All right, so now we've got a nice little platform for our fairy house with a nice little lip, a little spot for your electronic LED candle or light, tea light, whatever you want to call it. And that's ready to go. So now we can work on our stem. Let's move that out of the way. Okay, so start working on the stem here. Now, one thing to take a look at here, there's a series of flowers that are going to go on the cap, and there's also 6 flowers that are going to go on the stem. The 6 flowers that go on the stem are larger than the, I don't know how many are in here, but anyway, these are the smaller ones. They're slightly smaller. You'll see the difference. And you know what, if you get them mixed up, it's not really that huge of a deal, but I just want to let you know. And then we've got some floral elements that are going to go on the stem once they're all done. We've got a door, and we've got some frames for the windows. And there's another part of the door and another part of the door. We'll worry about that in just a moment. And the main part of the door is made up of these two pieces, which will go together very quickly. And then we have panels, decorative panels that I've inked with a nice brown that are going to go on top of this once we actually construct this piece. And of course, we have some vellum. And the vellum, we're alternating colors here. This orange we're going to use for the front, and then we're going to do yellow here. And there's an element on the back that we're also going to cover with an orange. So if you're using the same colors, the front and back are orange. The two windows, the sides that are opposite or next to the actual door, are going to be in yellow. Okay, so let's do this. Let's put this together halfway. Okay, and then we're going to put our vellum on after we get this on halfway. We'll close it up, and then we'll put our last piece of vellum in there. It's just going to make things a lot easier for us. So go ahead and get your glue on that tab there. It doesn't matter if it's this one or that one. I'm going to do the same thing on both here, ultimately. And get that glue out to the very edge of that tab. Okay, and just lay that down. You could use your table. And get that nice and aligned. Make sure that you've got a nice continuous line there, so that they're lined up nicely. And then press that down, give it a second to hold, and then we can take this and fold it over onto that seam there. And this should be laying right on top of itself perfectly. You shouldn't see the one behind it peeking up or the bottom peeking out. Okay. All right, so now that we've got that seam in place there, now remember what I said. Let me see if these are the same size. Yep, these smaller ones are the exact same size. This is the front door. We're going orange on that, so make sure you get the right color there. And I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit of glue around the cutouts because I want it to stick really nicely and really closely to those cutouts. And then we'll just do a little extra glue around the perimeter. Make sure that as you're placing this down, that you're covering up the cutouts. Okay, just press that down. I threw a little extra glue down there, and that's fine. It's not going to hurt anything. And then let's do the back. Okay, and actually we can put all of our panels on right now, or I'm sorry, all of our vellum on, I should say, right now, and then close it up when we're done. That way it's a lot easier for us to do all this stuff. There we go. Perfect. And then our yellow piece here. Again, focus on getting that glue around these little cutouts here. We want that vellum to stick nice and close to these little cutouts. And then you can throw a little bit of extra there to keep it from flailing around. And before you commit, just make sure that you in fact have it in the right spot so all of these little cutouts are covered up, so you can see how that looks from the other side there. And that just leaves one more here on this side. And just kind of drawing the overall shape of this thing here. There we go. Perfect. There we go. Okay, so let's close this guy up here. We'll take our glue and get it on this tab here. Just like that. Just paint that glue right out to the very edge. And grab the opposite side and connect it nicely. There we go. And we can take it now and should be able to fold this in half. Should lie flat. It's a nice symmetrical piece. So we can add a little extra force to get that glue to really seep in there without warping this thing and bending it. And there we have it. Okay, so there's our stem. Almost complete. Now we just need to throw some panels on here. And obviously there's specific panels. These are the ones for the windows here. These are going to go here. That's our front door. This is the back. And then there's two sides that don't have anything. So you know where those go. And I'm going to start with the front door. I want to make sure that I get that nicely centered, because that's where we're going to be focusing a lot of our attention on that front door, the entryway to Miss Violet's house. Okay, and just make sure that you get that glue right out to the bottom and the top. I'm going to paint that nicely all the way out to the very edges there. Okay, and when we apply this, we want to make sure that we're getting it nice and flush with the top. That's the most important, and also make sure it's nice and centered. I'm kind of pushing my fingers down here and then taking a look at both sides here to make sure that it is as centered as possible. I had it off just a tad, so I'll go ahead and correct that. And then just kind of work my finger. You can do this flat. How nice is that? I actually assemble this whole thing flat because it's not curved at all. It's, you know, it's got nice straight angles there. Okay, so there's our front, and we'll move over here and let's take a look here. You'll notice that although these are both the panels for the windows, you'll notice that these holes here are on different sides. So just make sure you get that lined up correctly with the correct side. If you put this over here, you're not going to get your little cutouts for the vellum showing through there. So make sure you get the right one. And again, just apply your glue there. Oops, watch out for those little holes there. I just kind of missed one. It's okay. Get a little extra glue on top and on the bottom so that we can kind of paint that out all the way to the bottom and the top. So it sits nice and flush for us. Again, double check to make sure you've got the right piece. Get that nice and flush with the top. Make sure it's centered. Should match up with those holes nice and perfect. Give that a little nudge if it's not centered. And voila. You can put that down on your surface again and just press down. And there we go. All right. Moving right along here, we'll do the other side opposite of the front door. Get your glue on your panel here. Watch out for those little holes for the vellum. And a little extra on the bottom, a little extra on the top. Paint that out to the very edge. Just like that. And just make sure that you're lining it up nice and flush at the top. Cover those little cutouts. Check your little hole position there, just to make sure that it's matching up with the little cutouts for the holes. And then just press along the perimeter, the bottom, the sides, the top. Just make sure that everything's in place. Okay, that's looking sharp. Everything's connecting nicely. Everything's butting up nicely. All right, so that just leaves 3 more panels. This one doesn't have any holes at all, so this is going to go quick. Just get your glue out there. Again, top and bottom, a little extra love. Paint that out. Very little glue, don't need a lot. And again, just make sure you've got it nice and flush with the top, nice and centered. The edges of the panels should pretty much meet and look pretty seamless once it's in its final little shape there. That looks great. Okay. Next one. Let's go ahead and, whoops, well, that ain't good. I gotta clean that up. Oh, geez. Okay, right out to the edge. There we go. Okay, so this one is, that's a blank one there. And nice and centered, flush with the top. That's kind of what I'm focusing on first, is making sure that everything is flush at the top. And then working my fingers around the perimeter, getting everything in place. That's going on there very nicely. And that just leaves one more little panel, and then we can start decorating this thing. All right, now this one here is just some little heart cutouts here in the center, so be cautious of those as you're working your glue down. It's especially harder to see where your glue's going when you've got these crazy little patterns on the back here. So if yours is like that too, just pay close attention to where your glue's going. Okay, and this should fit like a glove, like a nice little puzzle piece. I'm looking at the hearts here. Make sure that's positioned nicely. Now I'm going back to the top, making sure that's flush, and that is perfect. Okay. Look at that. All right. Just check your work. Make sure that everything has a good connection. Nothing is sticking off or not fully glued down. I've got it pretty. It's pretty solid there. Okay, so now we can move on to our front door here. So here's our piece for the front door. That's going to go on like that. There's going to be a little part of it that's sticking off the sides, and that is by design. So you want to make sure that you don't put glue all the way out to the edge of that. Okay, so let's go ahead and apply our glue pretty much up to that point there. Right about there. And there we go. And use the little window cutout as your guide, as well as the bottom, because it's going to be completely flush with the bottom. So I'm kind of using my finger as a little anchor point there, just like that. Got a little glue that seeped out. I'll just clean that up with my fingernail. Press that down. There we go. Okay, and we have this little piece here. It's going to go right here on the window. So don't overdo it on the glue with this. It's a very small piece, doesn't require that much glue. Just a few little drops will do here and there. And if you have a little bit too much in any spot, you can just kind of dab it with your finger, thin it out, and just line that up with that little bar going through the middle of the window. Give it a nudge if it's not in the right spot. Press that down, and there we go. Okay, and we have the little top part here. I can actually just do this flat. And this, we're going to put glue on this entire piece here, because that's going to go on top of the existing door there. A little too much glue there. Okay, and just match that up nicely. There we go. All right, now we got to put the windows on, just like that. I did ink this a little bit with just a brown, just to kind of give it a little weathered look, and then I ran it through a little embossing folder, the wood grain one, which if you watched my live stream from a couple days ago, you'll know that's one of my favorite embossing folders. There we go, so that goes there, and then one on the other side as well. Just little bits of glue on this. Don't overdo it, because you're going to sit there forever waiting for it to set, and then you're going to get a gluey mess everywhere as well. So very light on the glue there. And pow, just like that. Okay. And there we go. Okay, so with this part, the actual stem here, all we have left to do is add our little floral elements here. Okay, so we've got two pieces that are going to go on either side of, and I think these are identical. No, they're not. Okay, they're going to be, it's going to be the two sets of leaves on the bottom, one set at the top. And the idea is to position this so that the little holes for the lights to come through are not being obstructed. Okay, let me take a look at my prototype here, and that is pretty much spot on. Okay, so we're going to glue this down first, and these little vines here, just take them and kind of curl them out to give this a little bit of dimension. And I think that we can always finesse this a little bit later. So don't put any glue on the vines. Just focus the glue on, well, actually, you know what, before we even do that, to give this even more dimension, the little leaves here that are somewhat, not isolated, but not connected to something else, take a little stick and just kind of pinch the tip of that, just to kind of give it a little bit of dimension like that. Okay, so like this one here, give that a little pinch right at the end, just to kind of give that a little life like that. I don't know if we can do that one. We'll try. No, I don't want to risk it. I don't want to rip the vine. This one I can do that too. Just give it a little pinch right at the end there. Just like that. And then if it doesn't look like it's pinched to the end, just go ahead and pinch it. This helps me create a nice centered, even little pinch. Okay, so now remember that the section with the two vines are going to be facing up. This one's going to be towards the door. And when we lay this down, we kind of want it like that. And remember this little cutout here in the center of all these leaves, we don't want it to obstruct that little cutout for that center light there. So what we want to do, just to get this on, you don't need a lot of glue for this. Just like a little dot there, a little dot there, and then maybe one dot here to get that to stick nicely for us. Okay, and remember when we put this down, try not to obstruct that little light there, that little cutout. Okay, that's probably about right. Let me move that just a tiny bit. And just press that down. Okay, so you see how that sits. And you want to also make sure that this doesn't extend beyond the base here, because otherwise this is not going to sit flat. So when you put that down, just make sure that it's just slightly above the very bottom there. Okay, and I think that looks good. Okay. And you can kind of flatten that out a little bit, because we're going to do that. We're going to end up doing the same thing with this piece as far as pinching goes. So, you know, honestly, I'd still pinch it. I think it's going to help kind of keep everything a little more dimensional. So let's do the same thing to the other side here, even though we're going to put another layer on top of this, so it might flatten it out. But this will be good practice for the ultimate little piece that's going to go on there in just a moment. Okay, give that a pinch. Give that a pinch. It is getting hot in here. Okay. All right, so remember, we can always do this later on, but you're going to want to pull these out a little bit and curl them so they're not sitting so flat. Anywhere we can add some dimension, why not, you know? Okay, so again, with the section here with the two little vines, you want those up towards the top side. And then this one's going to be coming up to the door. Again, don't obstruct that little cutout there. Don't obstruct that little cutout there, and keep it slightly up above the bottom here so that it can sit nice and flat. And then just a dot of glue here, here, and here will do. Okay, and again, trying to keep this nice and symmetrical. Let's take a look at that one there. That looks pretty good. Right about there. Oops. I'm gonna put that flat on my table here. Give it a nudge that way. There we go, like that. Okay, press that down. It's got a good grip. Okay, there we go. So you can see what that's starting to look like. That's very nice. Okay, so now we've got these pieces here, and these are going to match up with, oh no, that's going to match up with that there, like that. Okay, just like that. These we are definitely going to want to pinch. So go ahead and just pinch the tips of these, and then we're going to put little flowers in these as well. So I'm just using the tip of a hibachi stick. I think I had one left over from our little wagon that we just did, which I'm sure you guys saw. I'm going to predict that that's going to be the crowd favorite from this bundle. Could be wrong though, because I know you guys love the fairy villages. There we go. And just give that a stir. All I'm doing is just putting the little hibachi stick in the center and then just grabbing both sides of the tip there and just squeezing it right over like that. Okay, so this one is literally going to go right on top of the existing one there, just like that. Okay, and I think the best thing to do is probably just like we did before, just throw a little bit of glue around the inner cut there, just around that, like that. That'll hold it. No need to overdo it on the glue there. And just glue that down. Try to match it up with the existing cut out there. I can actually put that down on my surface and press. And there we go. Okay. So just do the same thing on the other side. Just stick that little tip there right in the center. Pinch. Oops. It's a little delicate, tiny little piece, but you can do it. How's yours coming along? Good? Good. Take your time. Don't rush and enjoy the process. I kind of wish I had a little more time to craft, but I got to do this for you guys so you can really enjoy it. But I'm not going to lie. Everyone thinks that I do some amazing things when they see these paper projects, but I always give my team kudos because I could not do it without them. I've got a brilliant art director, Mr. Ron Gutman, who spends countless hours developing all of our products, and then Diana brings them to life digitally. Okay, so again, if you just look at this little cutout here, just match it up with the one that's already there, just like that. Get it right on there, center it, and then cool thing is we can do this and just press down nice and flat, because this thing won't have to take its full shape, final shape, until we actually connect the cap of our mushroom to this base. Okay, so all that's really left to do now is put flowers. There's 3 on each side. Okay, and we're just going to curl the petals upward, just like that. That's all you got to do. And we're going to adorn these with some rhinestones after the fact. I'm not going to worry about that right now, but just put them right in the center of each of the little flowers there, or sorry, the little leaves. I'm using a dowel just to kind of get it in there nicely. And you can literally just kind of curl those petals up. I wouldn't worry so much about training them. Well, you know, actually, maybe we could just kind of curl them. Yeah, that looks nice. Just take a little, I'm using a little hibachi stick because this is a really delicate little flower. I don't want to use anything bigger. It's not going to look as pronounced. That's nice. And just one little dot of glue will do. And pop that right in there. You can use a little hibachi stick, or actually that's a dowel. And you get the idea here. Okay, so just curl the rest of these petals up, and we'll put one right here, and then you're going to put your other 3 in place, and then we're pretty much halfway there. We just need to build our cap and then join it together, and we're done. I think this one, I don't know if it's because I've been crafting for like 2 days now, but this one is going together a lot quicker for me. And it's really fun, actually. I think, you know what, this one also went together quicker because it doesn't have a slope on the stem. The stem is just nice and straight, which again is why we're able to work on this flat like we are right now, whereas the other one, we weren't able to do that because it had that little slope at the bottom. Okay, one more here. Well, two more, I should say. Okay, just kind of, I'm just taking and just curling it, just like you would curl your hair with a curling iron. Just take it, make some contact there, and just use the little hibachi stick to create that curl. Okay, let me move that. And last one here. And of course, we're going to bling this out with some rhinestones, maybe some liquid pearls. So definitely take a look at the final photo on the website to see what and where we did all that. Not required, as it's already pretty darn detailed without that stuff, but hey, why not? You know, we've come this far. May as well make it even more beautiful. And there we go. Okay, so there we have our base with our door, our windows, and oh, almost forgot. I've got my bag of bling in here. There are little hinges, or the outer part of the hinges for the door. We don't want to forget that. And if you take a look on yours, you may see it. I see them now. We do have some little guides there to help you with the positioning of these. So I'm just going to put a tiny little drop of glue, a few little dots, and you want to put each of these just under that little mark. Try to keep it nice and straight, just right under that first mark there, just like that. And then we'll do the same thing with this one. Okay. And that about does it for our stem. Just like that. Okay. Done and done. Okay, so here are the main structural pieces for the mushroom cap. And these are not numbered. If you made the other fairy village, you'll know that they're numbered. These are not numbered, but there's one main difference here. This section here in the center has an F on it. That is the front. Okay, so, and I think it's just because of the placement of some of the dots. So anyway, this is the front. That's all you really need to know. And what we're gonna do is just begin putting this together. And this one does kind of curve out a tad. So we're gonna kind of focus and make sure that as we're assembling this, that we are conscious of that. Okay, now we've got one little tab here. This one is, it's big enough to where we do want to put some glue on it, just a tiny little bit. And I want to tuck it right behind the neighboring piece. I can kind of move that out of the way to help us get our finger in there. And just press and hold that right up to the neighbor. And give that a second to set. Not a lot of surface area there, so it should go pretty quick. Okay. And I should have tucked these under. Oh, by the way, I would suggest going through all of these pieces and folding everything, getting everything nice and folded so that it's a lot easier to shape this thing. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a repetitive process here, getting all these tabs together, but it's not difficult. Just need to take your time. Okay, so just make sure that you line up the edges nicely. That's all you really got to do here, and be patient while everything sets. And before you know it, we will be done. We can put our little panels on and finish this thing off. Okay, so just put some glue on the next little triangular tab and do your best to align those two edges. Give that a squeeze Be patient while it sets. And if you get a little bit of glue that shoots out, it's not the end of the world, because we're going to be putting panels on this entire thing to cover up the, you know, the jaggedness of this, the main structure here. And it's going to come out looking really nice and smooth, just like a little mushroom cap should be. Okay, but your main objective right now is to take the edge here and line it up nicely with the edge on the other side. Okay, you want to just make sure that they're hugging each other. They're right butted up next to each other as closely and as accurately as you can possibly get it. Okay, just like that. And it's a very, very, well, when you're just connecting the two pieces, the slope of the shape isn't very obvious. But once we get everything together and all the pieces are joined together, it will become more obvious. And just try to be consistent as far as where you're placing, where you're connecting these two. Okay, but you can kind of see how it's got a little bit of a slope there, especially towards the bottom. Okay, so that is that. And then what we're going to do is I'm going to just kind of connect this half, and then we're going to throw our vellum on there once we get that connected. Okay, so there's the next little tiny little tab. It's really small, but should definitely throw a little bit of glue on there and get it connected to our neighbor. I can move this out of the way and line those edges up as accurately as you can, and give that a press. It'll go quick, and it will definitely go a lot quicker if you go easy on the glue. The more glue you have, the longer you're going to have to wait. So just be very sparse with it. But just make sure that whole tab is covered, because that way we'll have a lot of surface area doing all the major holding for us, but we won't have to sit there and wait a minute for each little piece to really set. Okay, and the beautiful part about that is you can just move the pieces out of the way as needed, so you can get your fingers in there much easier. And again, this is going to be a little bit of a repetitive process, but this is my moment of Zen, where you kind of just zone out. Not much thought involved, just focus. This is literally where, you know, you're not thinking too hard, but you are having to concentrate, and it really quiets your mind. And I don't know if you can hear them, but I think this is the late summer crickets during the day are really having a field day out there. It's kind of a nice little sound, almost like I'm listening to some kind of a meditation soundtrack. Just enjoy the process. As they say, it's not the destination, it's the journey. This is where you grow, this is where you learn, this is where you get better. And you've got that final product, once we get everything done, as your, well, we'll call it a trophy, your reward. Okay, there we go. So we got three sections connected now, and should have no problem getting our vellum in there once we get to that point. Okay, so back to the top here again. Got that tiny little tab, and we'll throw some glue on there. Let me move this out of the way. Sure makes it a lot easier to work. Let me fold these tabs in as well. That certainly makes it a lot easier to get the job done here. Okay, so again, you've got pretty much straight edges on both pieces, but they are kind of angled. All you want to do is just make sure that they are lined up nicely. Okay, moving right along here. And again, if necessary, if you get a little too much glue on there, just dab it off, and then you can actually apply it to the tab below it a little bit, just to get it off your finger. There we go. And it should go pretty quick if you got a nice thinned out bit of glue on your tab there. And I am just taking a look at those very edges there, making sure that I'm getting them lined up as accurately as possible. And then also, when I get down to the next tab, taking a look at the previous little tab that I glued down, just to kind of make sure that I'm being consistent with where I'm placing it. Okay, just like that. There we go. A couple more here. And we'll have half of this beauty nice and assembled. Here we go. Now the vellum for our cap, unlike the previous fairy house, which was Daisy's. I think is this Violet's? This is Violet's mushroom house. The vellum's all the same color up on top, so you don't have to worry about alternating colors or anything like that. Okay, and that's still nice and wide enough for us to get our vellum in there. Okay, so the last one on this section, before we start joining everything together, we've got that tiny little tab up there. And this one's going to be a lot easier to work with because there's nothing obstructing us on the right-hand side. Not that there really was before, because we moved it over, moved it out of the way. Oh, and let's get these tabs in here so that we don't have to jostle this thing around too much. And there's that tab. Just press and hold that. Give it a moment. And move that out of the way. Move on to the next tab here. Now, if you are feeling confident, like I am right now, you can probably do a couple tabs at a time. Okay, we're going to need to turn that down. And the next tab. There we go. All right, and let's just see if we can squeeze out 3 of them here. There we go. And there's one. And it's cool too if you do a couple tabs at a time. By the time you get to the second and third one, that glue, while not completely set, is more tacky and it doesn't take as long to set. So, you know, if you get the feel for it and you're comfortable, by all means, do a couple tabs at a time. Okay. All right, now I'm going to kind of spread this open a little bit. And if you want, if you have like a little pen or something, well, actually that's not going to work. Disregard that. I was trying to be tricky, but that didn't really work out. All right, so now the vellum pieces here, you'll notice, I believe, are all the same size. Let's see here. Yeah, they are. Okay, so they're all the same size. It doesn't matter which one you grab. And what we're going to do is we're going to place this vellum inside here. Just want to make sure that we're covering up all of the little cutouts. Okay. Now I did this in the last video. I put a little glue, just a little drop of glue up at the top, just to anchor this up there, so it sits nice, and I can position it where I want it, making sure that I'm covering up all of the little cutouts. And again, with the vellum piece here, you want to make sure that it does not extend past this bottom tab. If it goes past a little bit, it's fine. You just want to keep this one nice and loose, and you don't want anything encroaching over that final little score mark. Okay, and then you can peel this back and just get your glue on there. Focus a little bit of glue around the actual cutouts. We want the vellum to sit nice and flush up against and really close to those cutouts. Just like that. Grab the bottom, and then as you're bringing it down, just kind of lay it down nice and flat all the way throughout until you reach the bottom there. Okay, and that is what it should look like on the other side. We'll have that nice, beautiful little light coming through there. Okay, so just repeat that process again. We'll just put a little dot right there to anchor this up at the top. Instead of trying to do it all in one shot and then missing and then getting glue all over the place, I think this is probably a better little method. Okay, and be patient while that sets. And I like to put the vellum inside, and it's going to make it a lot easier for us to put the panels on the outside of our cap without having to worry about the paper not sticking or sitting nice and flush. So yeah, this might be a little bit weird. Not weird, but I'm not sure that I've ever done it this way, but I think it's going to give us a better end result. It's going to make the whole process simpler for us. Okay, there we go. That's looking good. Moving right along to the next one. Oops, that didn't sit nice. You sit nice, mister. Okay. And we can, let's do this one here. Just gonna put a little dot of glue right up at the top. Thin it out nicely. It'll stick to that vellum a lot quicker if you do. And get it up there. Press down, make sure that as you lay this down on the rest of the surface that you're covering up the little cutouts. And we can move this out of the way. And get your glue on the rest of this shape here, or around these little cutouts, I should say. And then again, as you're putting it down, just kind of push it down. I'm kind of pushing it down, making sure that it's making contact as I bring it all the way down. There we go. It's okay if they kind of aren't perfectly centered. As long as you've got these covered, and as long as it's not overly encroaching on this little tab down here, you're going to be in good shape. Okay. So I've got one more here. So a little tiny dot of glue here, thin it out, and grab our little vellum piece, pop it right in there, make sure that it's covering up all the cutouts. That looks good. Give that a sec. Let's peel this back and get the rest of our glue on here. Again, focus on making sure you get enough around the little cutouts. Doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't have to be pretty either, because no one's really going to look in here. And actually, we're going to cover it up completely. You're not even going to be able to see in here at all. So don't worry about. This is the time where you let loose and, you know, go a little nuts with the glue. And plus, you know, it is kind of a, it's a bit of a tight squeeze, so it's okay if it doesn't look very polished. It's not the end of the world. Okay, so we've got that. Now we are going to be connecting a tab to this, so I don't want to put the vellum down there just yet. Let's get the rest of this ready. I'm going to get these tabs facing the right way. I don't know why I did that to myself. Just trying to make my day more difficult today, I guess. Silly Leo. Okay. All right, so the process with this is pretty much the same as we've just done over and over again. And actually, you know what? Why don't we do this? Why don't we, let's put the last panel on there. I did this with the last one. There was one where even though we still had to put tabs on it, I just put it on there just to make life easier later on. It's not that, not that it won't work, gluing a tab to vellum. It actually worked very well. I just think that this is just easier right now based on where we are. So I'm just putting that last piece of vellum on this side just to get it out of the way. And then let's flip this back And let's get our glue around that cutout, around this cutout, and that one. You know, got a little too close for comfort there. And just lay that down. Make sure you're covering those little cutouts nicely. Okay, so we've got vellum on all of these now. Okay, so we are going to join this to the other piece here. Okay, and we're going to start with this one here. Typically, these are already joined and connected. We don't have that luxury because we're joining two pieces together this time. So we want to do our best to try to get this aligned as accurately as possible. Okay, get a good amount of glue on there. Make sure it's all the way out to the very edge. Don't overdo it. We want this one to grip and hold quickly and tightly so that it kind of sets a good tone for the rest of the assembly. Okay, just make sure that, here, let's move this out of the way. Let's move that one out of the way, actually. I may need to pull this off. I kind of snoozed a little bit there. There we go. That's a good one there. Okay. And that's pretty spot on, I'd say. Okay, so just lift this up and move on right down to our next little tab here. Just dab that down a little bit and just line that up as accurately as you can. You can do that if you need to. I'm still squeezing the previous tab. I'm just moving this out of the way so that it's easier to get my fingers in there. Okay, moving on to the next tab. Dabbing that tab. And again, as you progress through this assembly, you are going to notice that there's going to be a little bit more resistance because the paper's kind of taking on its final shape, and it's not completely straight. It's not like a box. It is curved, so you may need to kind of push it in and angle it a little bit more. Give it a little extra force just to get it to sit in the right spot. Okay. There we go. Yeah, it is looking good. Two more, and I'm starting to build my confidence here, so I'm just going to do these last two at the same time. Okay. And voila. There we go. Okay, now I'm probably just going to, in between connecting these sections, get my vellum in there as well, just so that it doesn't get too hard. So again, I'm just putting a little drop of glue up at the top there to anchor it. Make sure that you're covering up all the little cutouts. Give that a second to set. Okay, so you can see that. I'm just anchoring the next piece of vellum here. All right, so moving right along here. Just want to make sure that just get everything lined up as accurately as possible. It goes without saying. Now, this is very repetitive now, so if you kind of get the gist of it, you can definitely go ahead and move on. Now this process is pretty repetitive, so if you feel comfortable and you know what you're doing, you can go ahead and pause me and then fast forward once you get everything done. I'm not really doing anything different here. Just, like I said from the beginning, this part is going to be pretty repetitive, so, and I'm going to do my best to, in between putting these sections together, to go in and get my vellum in place as well. Okay. And try to breeze through this here a little bit quicker. Just want to get that glue out to the very edge there. And when you kind of dab it like that, it thins it out, tackies it up, helps it set a lot quicker so you can kind of breeze through it a little bit faster. I didn't want to do that from the get-go because I wanted to make sure that you saw the process and you know what you're doing before I start going into warp mode. Okay, so now again, you can pull this out. It should be nice and dry by now, and we're going to go ahead and again put a little bit of glue right up at the top just to anchor our little piece of vellum, nice and thin so it doesn't take forever to set. Grab your piece of vellum and you can move that out of the way. Just get it anchored nicely and make sure it's nice and centered and that it's not encroaching onto that bottom part where that tab is. That tab is going to be used to create the bottom of our little cap. Okay, so you can see here what I'm doing. Just put a little bit of glue around the cutouts so that the vellum sits nice and flush right there, and then we'll do a little bit around the perimeter so it holds the whole shape down. And as I did before, I'm just kind of pushing down as I work my way down, just to make sure that it's making good contact, especially around the areas that contain little cutouts. Okay, you can see how nice that looks. Okay, so we just got a few more to do here. And we'll be on the last leg here. Okay, so this tiny little guy goes first. And I'm gonna do a few at a time here. Just kind of power through this now. Now that we've got the experience, I think we can push along a little bit quicker. There we go. And there we go. Beautiful. All right, move these out of the way. Do the last three here. Just line everything up. Make sure the edges are meeting up nicely. There we go. Okay, so flip this thing over, open it up a little bit, and pop a little bit of glue right there. Thin it out. I'm going to dab that a little bit too. And just pop that right into place. And that looks good. So we can peel that back and get our glue in there, especially around the cutouts. And there we go. All right, and then just press that down as you're laying it down all the way to the bottom, just to make sure that it's making good contact around the areas with the cutouts. I want that to be nice and flat. There we go. Okay, so that's nice. And just a couple more times here. or be on the last leg here. Move that back out. Okay, you know what? I'm going to just do this one first without going down to the next one because it is a smaller piece. I want to focus my attention on making sure that I don't screw that one up. I'm going to take a little extra time here on this one just so that I don't mess it up. Make sure that that is nice and connected. Okay. And again, as we're approaching here towards the end, you're going to have to probably push this thing around a little bit to make sure that it sits, or it gets out of your way, I should say. And there we go. So I just did 2 there. And I'll do the last 3. One, 2, 3. Getting that glue out to the edge. And back to lining things up nicely. There we go. And the last one. Okay. And you can see how you can still stretch this out and easily get your vellum into place there. It's not until we completely close it up, and what I think I'm going to do is before we close it up completely, oops, I'm going to put the last piece of vellum on before we go to close it up. So again, just lining it up, anchoring it right up at the top, making sure that I've got good coverage everywhere. Okay, you can definitely do it like this. I'm pushing down on my table, so this thing's kind of upside down right now, which is fine. And then we'll get our glue in here around the cutouts, and then a little bit of glue to hold down the entire shape. And I'm pushing down as I'm bringing it down to make good contact with everything. And there we go. Okay. All right, so almost there. Let me move this out of the way. We're just going to do this tiny little guy here real quick. Get that anchored, and then we can breeze through the rest of them. It's okay if your hand has to be like inside the cap. It's not a problem. However you need to do it to get your hand in there is totally fine. Okay. So that looks good. Let me move this out of the way without jostling it around too much. And dab that glue right out to the very edge here. And you can tell when I'm not as chatty during the instructional parts, when I'm really focusing. So I want to make sure that, you know, this is basically the skeleton of our mushroom cap, and it's one of the main focal points of what we're creating right now, and I just want to make sure that I get it right. I've heard some comments from some of our fans, and they wonder how I can talk and craft at the same time. And well, sometimes I do get a little quieter because I almost feel like I'm performing surgery and I don't want to mess up. Luckily, it's just paper. It's not life or death. Okay, there we go. And as I mentioned, well, actually, you know what? There's only one more vellum piece to do, and the tab's already on there, so that is fine. Okay, so here you can see it's pretty much all together now. I'm going to do a little dot right up at the top, just like I have. And get my last, see that little bit of glue there? Nothing's changed here, doing the same thing that I've been doing. And I'll show you here in a second. I doubt you need to see it because I've already done this a bunch of times, but just anchoring it, just like I have every other piece. You can see right there, that piece right there is anchored. And you can flip this up and get your glue around the remaining cutouts here. Just 3 little holes, and then just drawing the shape of our little piece here, just like that. And I'm gonna lay that down nice and flush up against those little cutouts, just like that. Okay, and you can see how nice that is. Okay, so we are on the final step here. All we need to do now is just join everything together. So we want to get these tabs and pull them in. And I'm going to take these little teeth up here, move them out of the way so I can get my finger in there better to help me get that first little tab, and maybe even the second one, connected nicely. Okay, so go ahead and get your glue on this tab here. Just going to dab that out to the edge, thin it out. And again, you're going to have some resistance here, so really don't worry too much about where the rest of it is. Just focus on this little segment here and make sure that you get it lined up as accurately as you can. Those 2 edges need to be connecting as accurately as you can get them. And I know that looks weird there, but don't worry about that right now. Just focus on getting this to stick. And we're going to give it a few extra seconds to really set, because now is where we're going to experience a little bit more resistance, and we want this to be fully set before we move on to the next piece, and kind of, we're going to be tugging on this a little bit, so be patient with this first section here. Okay, so now take the rest of these teeth and make sure that they're going in, that they're behind that wall there, and what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to apply our glue from the inside. Okay, so you can see that tooth there that I angled in towards me. You can see it there. You just put the glue on there. I'm going to dab that out to the very edge. Okay, and let's see if I can get my finger in from, nope, I'm going to have to go in from the bottom, and that's okay. So just get that nice and lined up. I'm using my thumb as kind of like my table, my surface, since it's my biggest digit. And there we go. Just pressing with, well, now I'm using my pointer finger inside to push down on that tab. You can see I'm pushing down and then I'm pushing in from the outside with my thumb to get those 2 connected. And now I can move on. And I don't know if I want to do more than one at this point. I think it might just be a good idea to just focus on one at a time here, just because we're closing it up and we're also dealing with gluing it onto a piece of vellum. So just take your time with this as much as you can, as this is the, there we go. It's not hard, it's just it's a matter of figuring out how to position your finger in there just to make it as comfortable as possible while making sure that you get everything aligned nicely. Okay, so that one's in place, and we just have 4 more little teeth to glue down, and our structure will be complete. You can see the glue there on the 4th from the bottom. So actually, it's the 4th from the top, so essentially the middle tab now is going in place. Make sure that it's nice and aligned. There we go, and just press that together. Give that a second to really set. Okay, and I've just got 3 more now. And you can see that one there. Still kind of thinning that glue out and getting it out to the edges. And now I can probably, yep, I can use my thumb just like I would normally to hold that in place. make sure it's as lined up as you can possibly get it. Great. All right, 2 more. And then we can close this thing up. And then we got panels and some flowers, and our project will be complete. And then I am off to editing, so I can get all these videos edited for you and get this thing released. Today is September 4th. And we're going to be enjoying some fall crafts very early on here in the season. All right, last one. And I'm going to thin that glue out. Get it out to the edge. And last one. And there we go. Okay. So again, doesn't look, you know, it's actually, well, it's together nicely. I'm very happy with it. Obviously, we still have panels that we're going to put on here to give this thing a nice smooth look. You can see the difference there. But I did have to build a structure for it. All right, so now we're going to take these tabs and we're going to fold them in, and we're going to create a nice little lip. Well, actually, you know what? Let's put the top on first to help it hold its shape. So what you're going to do is find this little piece here, and let me bring these down. We're going to glue it. We're going to glue just one side of it first. Okay, just like that. And find one side of our piece here and just get it nice and centered on that. And you know what, honestly, if you don't get this perfect, and we've got a nice pretty little flower that's going to sit on top of this that will hide any imperfections, but you still want to do your best. So definitely do that. All right, I've got it hinged now. Can move it out of the way. And now you can go ahead and get glue on the remaining tabs here. Tiny little tabs. That's fine. And I'm going to just dab that, get it out to the edges as close as I can. Okay. And then let's kind of flip these up a little bit so that as I'm pushing down, I'm making more contact with the paper, and focus on getting it aligned with the side opposite of where it's hinged, and then the rest of it should just kind of fall into place, and that looks pretty darn good. Yay. Okay, and then you can push from the inside, and there we go. Okay, so our cap is on. The cap on the cap is on. So now we want to find these 2 pieces here. Okay, this is our little lip that we're going to put in place first to help kind of cement the overall shape. And then we've got one more piece that goes on top of that, which we're going to use to join the cap to the base. Okay, so go ahead and put some glue on just one tab here. Kind of overdid it there with that glue. Okay, and then take this piece, pick a side, any side, and get it nice and centered right there. Just like that. Make sure it's nice and centered. All right, good job, Leo. Good job, me. How are you guys doing? You get it okay? You got this far. You're almost done. Okay, great. I'm gonna put that down on my surface and just press down to make sure it really sticks. And let's find our front. Where's our front? Oh, okay, right next to it, that's fine. Okay, so now we're gonna close this up. We're gonna need to put glue on all of these tabs now. So go ahead and work some glue in the middle of each tab, and then we're gonna do one more line around to get it out to the very, very edges here so that everything looks nice and crisp. And I'm going to clean that up with my finger here in a second, so no big deal if you get a little extra glue out there. Okay, so just work that out to the very edge, all the way around. Okay, let me clean off my finger there. Perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to close this up. Again, focus on making sure that you get it nice and aligned with the side opposite of where that hinge is. Get it nice and centered, nice and aligned, and then the rest of it will more easily fall into place. That looks good and centered. You can kind of use you can get your finger in there and use that to squeeze these two pieces together, and just focus on making sure that it's nice and aligned with this piece here. You got it right out to the very edge. There we go. And the little panels here are going to flare outward, so if you don't get it perfect, you're not going to see it anyway, but we need this piece so that it's easier to install the little section that's going to help us anchor this to our stem. Okay, and as I'm working my way around here, I might need to kind of nudge the walls in a little bit just to make sure that everything lines up correctly. Okay, and that looks good. Okay, so far so good. And where's my front? There's my front. Front looks great. Okay. All right, so now we've got this piece here. I've got texture here. I want the texture side on the bottom, just like that. So I'm gonna fold these out this way. So just to give you an idea of what we're doing here, we're putting this piece on, and then these tabs are gonna go inside of the stem. We're gonna glue them to the inside of the stem to hold everything together. Okay, so this is a pretty simple process here. We just need to put glue on the entire piece here. And then we're going to do a nice line around the perimeter as well, because we want that to sit really nice and flush and look seamless. Okay, so when we start here, start spreading that glue out. There we go. And I'm going to find my front. Where's that little F? There it is. And I'm gonna get that part on there first so that I know that that is perfect, because that's where we're gonna be focusing most of our attention, probably on the front of the house, our little mushroom house. And then just work your way around, get it nice and lined up with the rest here. And that is looking sharp. Okay, so our little anchor piece is in. If you have any little sections like right here where I probably didn't get enough glue on there, just grab a scrap piece of paper, throw a little bit of glue on there, and then just paint it. You can stick that right in and paint it onto that piece. And then press that down and hold that down right in that little area. Okay. Okay, so there's our cap. Looking good, and I just want to show you here. So that's going to go inside those little tabs, and we're going to use those tabs to glue that to the actual stem. Okay, but before we do that, we do need to put our panels on. It's going to be a lot easier if we just grab our panels and put those on first. Okay, and now we are, in our case, we are alternating colors here. Okay, so that's why we have a little F on here so that we know which one is the front. And then we also have I'm going to make sure that you grab the right panel for each section. And what we're going to do is we're going to start with just the top here. So I'm going to throw a little bit of glue right on the back of this panel. I'm going to spread that glue out to the very edge, and we're going to anchor this first. So this is my front. And we want to take this piece and kind of butt it up against that little cap on top of our cap, and just press and hold that, and then kind of, make sure that it looks centered on this section. Okay, and again, make sure you got the right piece, because the pieces have different cutouts for the vellum. So you want to make sure you grab the right one. Hold that in place for a moment. Okay, and then we can kind of flare this out, and we're going to put a little bit of glue here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and then do a little bit along the side. Now, you don't need a lot, just a tiny bit. And then we're going to do a nice line of glue here that we're going to spread out to the very edge so that doesn't come peeling back, or peeling off, I should say. And then go ahead and just nice and easy, press that up against the surface and just kind of smooth it out until you get to the bottom. And then you want to hold the bottom in place, especially, so that that sits nice for you. Okay, so it should be making pretty good contact all the way throughout without overdoing it on the glue. We don't want the paper to warp. Okay. And I'm going to be patient here so that it doesn't come off. And there we go. Okay, so look how nice that looks. And that's going to cover up any little blemishes or imperfections you have here. We've got that little lip with the scallops on it. That's going to make it really nice. Okay, so we are alternating colors here. So I can go either way. And I'm going to grab my next piece here and just find the right one to go onto that section. I believe it's this guy here, and it is. Okay, so we're just going to repeat that same thing. I'm going to start by just anchoring the top. I'll get my glue on there, and I'm going to butt that up right up to that little cap on top, and press and hold that in place, and then kind of before it fully sets, just bring it down and make sure that it in fact is matching up with the little cutouts, and it is. That looks nice. Perfect. Okay, so just like we did before, do a little bit of glue in between each of these little sections where the vellum's cut out. Don't need a lot. I really don't want to do a lot of glue here, and then just a little bit along the sides, but especially a nice amount here at the bottom that I want to pull down all the way to the very edge, and then kind of hug that curve of our little cap as you work your way down to that final little spot, and then press and hold until that bottom is fully set. And you can see how nice and even that is, and how nicely that matches up. And that's it. Okay, so moving on here to the next panel. Now, since this is my front, and I want to focus on making the front as perfect and seamless as possible, I'm going to move over to this piece over on the other side of the front, find the correct panel, and we're going to do the same exact thing. So actually, at this point, if you're comfortable, you can pause me and scrub me ahead to the next section, and we'll be just putting some flowers on this to, well, actually we're going to join the two pieces together first and then put some flowers on it. But just make sure that this panel here is butting up to the top here, and then take a look and make sure that it's, you know, covering up the, well, matching up with the little cutouts for the vellum. And then we can flip this up, and again, just putting a little bit of glue in between here so that it sits nice and flush, and then maybe just a little bit along the sides, very thin, and then a nice amount at the bottom so we can kind of paint that out to the very edges so that it sticks nicely for us. Okay, and just remember, as you're bringing it down, make sure you're hugging the surface of the little skeleton part of our mushroom house, and then just hold that nice and tight at the bottom so that it doesn't come loose while it's setting. Okay, and then you can see how that's starting to look. Boy, it certainly is a lot nicer when it's smooth like that with some patterned paper. And I, of course, took some time to ink the edges of all of them. Went a little bit heavy too because overall the bundle is kind of a rustic looking bundle, and it's in the woods and we've got a wagon with it. So I went a little heavier on the ink this time. All right, so the front looks great. And it's just a matter of putting the rest of the panels on. Just make sure that you get the right one for each little section. And do that again. Just throw a little bit right up towards the tip. Thin it out, get it all the way out to the edge. And just butt it up to the cap and hold it in place. Make sure it's nice and centered. Let that set. Okay, and then once it's mostly set, you can get in there and add a little, just thin amounts of glue, not a lot. Just like right there. A little bit along the sides, and then of course our nice little line at the bottom. I can spread that out all the way to the bottom there. Just make sure that as you're bringing this down, that you're hugging the surface. Try to butt it up to the panel that's right next to it here, so this one here. So it's as close to that one as you can get it. And then just hold that bottom part down. And maybe just hold these areas down too. All right, it's coming along here. I'm gonna go over to the other side and find the panel. That's the right one there. Get our glue right up to the tip. And just pop that right in. Check your alignment. Make sure that's as centered as you can get it. There we go. And we can start putting some glue on here. A little bit on the sides, and a nice line at the bottom. Just paint that out all the way to the very edge. There we go. And hug that surface, butt it up against that panel that's right next to it, and then just hold down at the bottom. Make sure it's nice and making good contact all the way throughout. And there we go. Okay. So, moving right along here, let's make sure we find the right piece. That looks like the one. And just repeating the same process. Get that nice and aligned. Make sure it's centered. There we go. Just like that, that looks good. So we can flip this up and just apply our glue to a few little spots here in the center, a little bit on the side, and then at the bottom. Okay. And just bring that down, hug that surface, make sure you're butting it up against that panel there next to it. And just hold it down at the bottom. There we go. All right, moving along here. A couple more and we're done. And then we can do some fun stuff and embellish this thing, finish it off. Okay, so again, make sure it's nice and centered. Kind of give it a wiggle move it left or right so that when you place it down, it's butting up against that panel next to it. I want to make sure that the holes on the panel line up with the holes for the vellum, and that looks good. So we'll go ahead and glue that down. A little bit on the side, and right there at the bottom. There we go. And hug that surface, give it a nudge, make sure that it's butting up against the panel next to it, and then just hold that down at the very base there. Make sure that that is nice and making good contact, essentially. All right, so we got 3 more here. Okay. Get that lined up, nice and centered. Bring it down, make sure that everything lines up nicely, and it does. So I'm just going to flip this up. My glue tip is getting gross. There we go. A little bit there, a little bit there. A little bit along the edge, sides I should say. And there's our line on the bottom. Paint that out to the tip, very edge I should say. And just hug that surface. Nudge it over a little bit. Get those seams nice and lined up, and then hold that bottom. All right. Well, there's only 2 left, and we're alternating colors, so that's got to be the one there, and it is. So let's get that in place. And check your alignment, check your centering. That looks perfect. So far, so good. Come a long way with this project, and I hope that yours is coming out as nice as mine is. Very happy with how this is turning out. It's going together perfectly. Okay, just kind of nudging that over to the left a little bit. I want it to really make almost, well, it's pretty much touching the panel that's right next to it on the left here. And that's nice. It's perfect because we want it to look as seamless as possible. Okay, and our last one. Let's get our glue in place, paint it out, and it should fit in there nicely. Pretty much perfect. It's butting up against both sides. Awesome. Well, I'm happy with how that turned out. And let's get some glue on here. Very thin, not a lot. A little bit up the sides, a little bit down here, and then of course our last little bit there. And just hug that surface, make good contact, give it a little nudge left or right depending on where you think it needs to go more. And remember, hold it down here at the bottom and make sure that that gets a good hold. This is perfect. Awesome. I hope yours turned out as good as mine did. And there we go. Kind of crease these a little bit. That's okay. They look good still. All right, so there's our cap. Okay, so we are on our last leg here, and my mushroom cap is complete. Now, what you want to do is find the side where you've got one of the panels that match up straight on with one of these tabs. So you can see how that's straight on. Okay, we're here on this side. Okay, that is not straight on. If we were to put this on, let me explain this differently here, hold on. So what we want to do is find the side where when we put this down, one of the panels lines up straight with the front door. Okay, see how that lines up straight? Where if you can put it on a different way. If you put it on like this, you get, there's a seam going straight down. And you could do it that way if you want, but if you want to follow the original design, make sure that you find the side that when you put that tab in there, that the panel on the cap matches up with the front. So it's not like this, it's like this, okay? And it's only gonna work two ways. This way, or if we flip it all the way around to this side, like that, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, so to get this in place now, I'm gonna begin by anchoring just one side here. So let's put some glue on one tab, and I'm gonna do the front tab here for the front of the house, okay? And we're gonna slide that in, make sure that all the tabs go in. Okay, so I'm just gonna match that up, make sure it's nice and flush, and I'm taking that tab and I'm pushing it against the inside of this piece here. I'll show you that in a second here once it fully sets. I don't wanna risk it coming apart here, so give me just one moment and I'll show you what I'm doing. Okay, so let's take a look from the inside here, and you can see, and I'll point to it with my dowel, these are the other tabs that are not glued yet. This one is glued to the back of the front door piece, okay? The section that contains the front door, I should say. Okay, so now that that's glued down, I can actually move this out of the way for now, and I'm gonna put glue on the tab opposite the side that I just did. Okay, you don't need to worry about getting it out to the very edge or anything like that. And now this time around, we're gonna do the same thing, except we're gonna put that tab, and we're gonna push it up against the back, this piece. We're gonna push that up against the back wall, and you wanna make sure that all of your tabs are in, because there's no going back at this point, okay? So I'm gonna take that tab, and I'm gonna get this nice and lined up. Make sure it's nice and flush with the bottom of the mushroom, the cap, and then just push that up against the inside wall of this back piece to get that to stick. And all my tabs are inside, so that's good. Okay. And that just leaves 4 more tabs to glue down. You can see those 4 that are sticking out. So pick one, throw a little bit of glue on it. You don't need a ton. And I'm pushing that up against the inner wall of this section now. Real quick, real simple. And now I'm gonna move over to the opposite side. That's the side I just did. Now I'm gonna move over to this side. A little bit of glue, not a ton. And just push that up against the inside wall. Make sure it's nice and flush with the bottom of our little mushroom cap. And then that just leaves 2 more tabs. You can see those 2 that are sticking out there. A little bit of glue there, and a little bit of glue there. And just push that up against the inner wall of that piece, and then go over to the other side, push that up against the wall, and bam. Okay, that's all together, and it's all one piece. And our mushroom house is pretty much done. Now we can have some fun and make some flowers for it. We got a bunch of little flowers that we're gonna put all over the little cap. I already pre-made a bunch of these, and I put some rhinestones in them. I'm gonna show you how I made 2 of them. It's very simple, actually. Okay, so here's 2 that I still haven't done yet. The little leaf part here, I'm just taking a little hibachi stick, putting it right in the center of the leaf, and then just pinching it, just to give them a little bit of dimension, just like that. Just give them a quick pinch. Okay. and pinch. There we go. And I'm gonna pinch this one too. So I would just create kind of like a little assembly line for all these. Just give them a pinch. Do all your little leaf sections. And then with the flower petals, I'll just take them on my same hibachi stick and just curl them up towards you, like you're curling your hair. Okay, and we're gonna scatter these all over the mushroom cap in various places. So you can take a look at the final photo to see kind of where I put them. Each little panel is gonna get one, and you wanna kind of stagger it. Maybe one here, one here, one here, just wherever you see fit. Whatever looks good to you. Take a look again at the final photo to see where I put that. And then we have a beautiful little flower that we're going to put on top, as I mentioned earlier. In case your top isn't perfect, we've got a flower to cover up that. So now as far as putting these together, I'm just going to put a little drop of glue on the back of this flower, very tiny little drop, you don't need a lot, and pop it right into the center of your little leaf element. And I'm just using a dowel to push that down. And then you can see here with the rest of these, I also put a nice turquoise rhinestone in the center of those to finish them off and make them look more flowery. Okay, there we go. And where is my pick-me-up tool? And I need a scrap piece of paper here. I'll just put a little bit of glue on my scrap piece of paper, grab my pick-me-up tool. I've got some rhinestones over here off camera. And I just pick it up with my pick-me-up tool. Just dip it in a little bit of glue, brush it off, thin it out. And there's a little tool that's on the back of this that you can use to, once you get it in place, hold it down so that you can remove the pick-me-up tool because it's got a little bit of a tackiness to it. And then we just repeat that a couple times until we get them all done. And that's just really going to take this thing over the top as far as embellishments go. It's just going to really finish it off. I was talking to Ron just a moment ago, and he said that he added these flowers because he thought this little mushroom is sitting in the forest, and there's a flowering tree above it that was just releasing a bunch of flowers, and it just so happened to land on the flower's cap. Okay, so that just leaves our last little flower. Again, I'm going to put these on probably off camera. Just take a look at the final photo to see where I put all those. That's really up to you. And so we have, well, we've got this little flower here, and it's made up of two sections that are basically like leaf elements. I'm going to take a dowel and I'm going to curl these down. I want them to kind of hug the top of my mushroom cap. So I'm going to curl these downward. Okay, just like that. So what we can do is take a little bit of glue, just a tiny little dot of glue, thin it out nicely up on top, and I'm going to angle this towards me so I can make sure that I have it nice and centered. And let's see here, where's my front door? There's my front door. I'm going to have one of the little leaves kind of poking out towards the front. Make sure you get it nice and centered. That looks nice. Just press that into place. And we're going to do the same thing with this guy here. Okay, now what we can do to give this a little added dimension is kind of fold it up first, just a tad. Just crease it a tiny bit, and then take your dowel and just curl them down so they're pointing down. So they kind of start up and then they come down like that. And then we'll just throw a little dot of glue here in the center of this guy, and that is going to go right on top of this one here. Just get it nice and centered there. There we go. That's pretty. And now we just have to assemble our little flower. That's going to get squished down more, but that's okay. All right, so to make the flower, we're going to take and curl the petals up. that. Oops. Just curl them up, just like that. Now this is the smaller one. That's going to go inside of the larger one, but we want to curl those petals up as well. And then we just have to put a little stamen in there and pretty much done. So throw a little dab of glue there, right in the center. Take this one and offset it so it's not sitting right on top of it. You want it offset just a tad to make it more full. Okay, and you can kind of maybe bring this in even more. We want to create a little bit of separation between these two layers. And I'd probably wait until it's fully dry before I start finessing this even more. Okay, and that just leaves our little stamen piece. And what we can do, take a little skewer and just grab it at one end here and just start wrapping it around this little end that has, you see it, the stamens on this side go all the way to the end. Start on this side. You can bring your little stick up past that point and start wrapping it. Wrap it around just maybe one time just to get it started. Make sure it's nice and tight. And then do a little bit of glue all the way down this little base portion. Okay, so that it kind of will start to stick to itself, and just keep wrapping it around until you're all the way at the end. And you might get a little bit of glue squirting out if you overdid it like I just did, and that's okay. It'll dry. And just close it up so it's all bunched together, and then while you're holding it and you're letting the glue set, just take these and just kind of flare them out a little bit, just so they're not all completely bunched together, right? And then take your glue, do a little drop of glue there on the bottom of that, place it in the center of your flower. Okay, there we go. And I probably need to bring these in a little bit more. That's fine. And there we go. And then we can take a little dot of glue right on the bottom and affix that to the top of our mushroom. Make sure it's making good contact and then it's nice and centered. And voila. And there's our beautiful little flower on top, covering any potential imperfections that we may have. And then of course, I'll do a few of these with you. Again, really no wrong. You probably want to just fill in the areas. You'll notice here that we have these little cutouts for the vellum, and you may just want to put them in places where there's no little vellum cutouts, just to kind of fill in those little gaps. So a simple tiny little dot of glue will do. You don't need to overdo it, and then just figure out where it goes. Like this one's gonna land here. I'll grab another one. And this one's gonna go here. Okay, and just moving it over. So I would probably go around in a circle and just get one on each little section here. And then if you have some extras, just fill it in where you see fit. Okay, doesn't matter where they're at. I mean, it kind of does, but in the grand scheme of things, it's going to look great wherever you put them. Okay, just like that. Put that one there. Yeah, that's fine. And then I'm going to put one up a little bit higher on this side, and then maybe even let's put one here. And let's put one down at the bottom here on this one. Okay, moving right along. And this one's going to go here. And then this one's going to go down here. And I've got two more. And I may as well use these more towards the front so that there's more interesting stuff going on here on the front. Maybe we'll put this one Let's put that one there. And let me get some of that off. And then we'll do this one. Let's do this one about, yeah, right there's fine. Okay, and that's it, guys. That's it for this one. I'm gonna throw, I've got some liquid pearls that I'm gonna put on here too, just to kind of add a little bit more detail to it, but that's it for this. It's ready for your tea light, ready to be displayed, ready to be gifted, whatever the occasion, ready to be added to your existing fairy village. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the process. If you did, go ahead and take a moment and hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel and help that counter grow. That lets me know that you enjoy crafting with me and that you enjoy our projects. And if you make this or any of the projects from our new bundle, we'd love to see your version. So join us in the official group on Facebook by heading over to your Facebook and in the search box at the top, do a search for Dreaming Tree Group, where you can join myself and the 14,600-ish other dreamers that inspire us daily. So again, hope you enjoyed the video, and I look forward to crafting with you next time. Stay on top of all things Dreaming Tree and engage with us today. Get the latest news and enter in our giveaways on Facebook. Get inspired by following us on Pinterest. Be the first to see our new product launches on Instagram. Do you prefer Twitter? Yep, we're there too. Watch our beautiful product trailers and assembly tutorials on YouTube. For more information, visit www.3dsvg.com. Live, craft, love, and dream.